Hey, and welcome to Eat Out at Home, the podcast. This is the place for those who love cooking and creating connections through food. I'm your host, Chef Evelyn, and on this podcast, I share with you my favorite tips and tricks for enjoying life one bite at a time. If you're ready for today's episode, sit back, relax, grab a snack, and let's dive in. Hey, and welcome back to Eat Out at Home, the podcast. And today I want to chat a little bit about one of the biggest challenges that I have encountered when it comes to cooking at home consistently, cooking for myself, eating out at home, not eating out, not eating fast food. And a challenge that over the years from teaching cooking classes and just talking to people about food and friends and family and everyday life, just one of probably the number one hurdle that I hear people struggle with, and that I too struggled with for a while until I had a paradigm shift about it. And that is the challenge of not having enough time. Right. They're just cooking just took up so much time. And with everything that was going on in life, making time to cook can be a real challenge. And I will say it was for me. I can say from over the years, that is probably the number one reason, with there being several, but that being the number one, with probably not even a close second to people, having a hard time with cooking at home consistently. And so, because of that, we saw the rise of like meal kit delivery services. We've seen the rise of like DoorDash and Uber Eats and Postmates and things like that. We've seen the rise of grocery delivery and grocery pickup. And I have no objection to any of those things whatsoever, because what I really wanted to address was the root cause. I feel like a lot of those things are great for managing time, but they don't necessarily address the root of why is there a lack of time. And I can only speak from my perspective. And so, in my unique situation, knowing that every household, every individual is different, everybody's schedule is different. I am a woman who is single and is child free. And so I know that that's a very different experience than to say, a family of 5, right? Or something like that. And so, this is my experience. I say, take from it anything that's beneficial and modify it. Or if it sparks something, in your brain activity, then think about that. But I want to say this. The first thing I had to you just rest on is, okay, look, there is a finite amount of time. There is not an infinite amount of time for us as mere mortal human beings on planet Earth. There are 24 hours a day, and that time has to be divided up between a lot of different aspects of our lives, a lot of different responsibilities, and that varies drastically from person to person, from household to household, from individual to individual. Nobody is living the same day every day. Even if you are living in the same house, nobody is living the exact same day as another human being. And so, as I share kind of the realizations that I came to, you may come to some completely different conclusions. And I'm excited for you, because I feel like it would be beneficial to you if cooking at home and eating at home is something that is a priority to you. So first things first was like, okay, there's a finite amount of time. And so this idea that I don't have enough, or I didn't have enough time, or cooking at home was too time consuming, I really had to peel back the onion on what I was saying. It's kind of like, when people are saying like, what's the question behind the question? Or like somebody may say something is like, but what you're really saying is X, even though you don't know that. What I realized I was saying when I said that cooking at home was too time consuming, or that I didn't feel like I had enough time to cook. Now, this is for me, okay? But if I throw a rock, a hit dog will holler. Okay, that's a very Southern phrase, but a hit dog will holler every time. Okay, so I'm not talking about you in particular. Okay, I'm talking about me, which is I had to accept the reality that what I was really saying is there are other things that I'm doing with my time that I consider more important than feeding myself well. Simple. There are, and listen, I have zero judgment about that, right? But I had to be honest with myself and say, there are 24 hours. I get to decide, right, based on life choices and things that I'm experiencing, how I want to divvy up that time, how I want to utilize that time, how I want to spend that time, right? And a lot of people will tell you to make time. I'm never going to tell you to make time because you can't make more time. You got 24 hours. What I had to tell myself was I'm going to have to take time from something else and apply it to this. I cannot make time. I'm going to have to take time. And I finally landed on, Evelyn, if you are too busy to cook for yourself, you might be busier than God intended you to be. Now, you don't have to be a spiritual person, all that kind of stuff. But I thought to myself, if my body is designed to eat several times a day, every single day for the rest of my life, and I'm too busy to do something for my own survival, for me, I had to reevaluate my priority of how I was spending my time. That what did I have going on that was more important than nourishing myself well, than taking care of the physical body that I lived in so that I could have the longest life possible, right? And I talked in another episode about how, cooking at home consistently is more than just about like, oh, this would be great to save money and this would be great, to make better eating choices. And those are true. For me, it was creative self-expression. And I was like, so not only have you put something above saving money, feeding yourself consistently, feeding yourself is part of survival, okay, at a minimum, right? But also you've put something of your stress relief, because cooking is a stress relief for me. I put something over, my financial health, which is saving money by cooking at home. I've put something over the health of my physical body by not cooking at home. I put something over my creative self-expression. And when I started to view it that way, I was like, oh, yeah, I basically said, what I basically was saying to myself was, these other things that I'm using my time for are more important to me in this season than these things. And so I had to check in with myself and ask myself, is that true? Now, sometimes I'm going to say something that the quote unquote healthy people on the internet are not going to say. Sometimes that's true. Right. I think about people who maybe are going through grief, maybe are going through depression. Maybe they're a season in life where it's like, I've got, major projects at work for the next 3 weeks. And so I know for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be ordering takeout, whatever the case may be. But at least it's a conscious decision and not and it's temporary. It's not a lifestyle. What I realized that I was doing is that I was making these other things that I was utilizing my time for over financial, improvement, health improvement, creative expression, stress relief, all that comes through cooking. As a lifestyle, I was making those a bigger priority, right? So some people will say, well, my job is this, or, I have these commitments, outside of work or whatever. And again, I have no judgment on those. I have no dog in that fight. And I also, for me, had to say, what I am saying is those things are more important than me feeding myself and cooking at home. And until I was ready to admit that, then I was just kind of throwing the spaghetti at the wall, trying to anchor in and cook at home consistently. And, always having the circumstance of, man, I'm just short on time. Right. And it all goes back to values, which is, what do you value? What's more important to you? And I want to say this because I feel like a lot of times when people start talking about how people delegate their time, there's a lot of judgment there. And I don't think that there should be, because I think people's values are their own. I think that people's values are their own, and how they choose to utilize their time is a very personal experience based on what they value. My desire has always been just to be conscious of it and to be intentional about it, that you're not surprised, that you're consciously making the decision that you want to spend your time or focus your energy and efforts on something else other than this other thing, versus beating yourself up for not cooking at home when in reality, in this season, there is something else that may be more important to you. Or conversely, saying to yourself, like, actually, no, this is super important to me right now. Why am I not prioritizing this? Oh, because I'm doing this thing over here, and actually that thing over here, or these things over here are not as important, right? And so, you know, again, I'm not going to be here to be like, well, you're on TikTok, or you're on social media, or you're binge watching a series, or, well, oh, eating at home is expensive, but you have, this kind of luxury bag or this kind of lifestyle. There's no judgment here from that. It is simply a matter of priorities. And so for me, it was realizing that I had put certain things in my life that required my time over the benefits that I wanted to get from eating at home. And then I got to make a choice. I didn't have to, I got to make a choice. I was able to make a choice. I had the privilege of making a choice on whether or not I wanted to reallocate my time, shuffle the deck on how I spent my time, to dedicate that to the lifestyle of cooking at home, because cooking at home is not simply a habit. It's not just another chore. It is a way of life that I don't think people consider that. And I think sometimes when we're making a request of ourselves, sometimes we don't fully understand the request that we're actually making, right? And so for me, I was like, oh, wow. If you want to cook at home, that is going to require a lifestyle adjustment to do that. And some things are going to have to become lower priorities, meaning they will be allocated less time in my finite pie of 24 hours in a day. So I say that to you to say that if you have found that time has been a hurdle for you, an obstacle for you for cooking at home consistently, I would encourage you to do a time audit. And when you look at where your time is being utilized, ask yourself, are there certain areas where, you're utilizing your time for this specific thing, but maybe now it's not as important as it used to be, right? Maybe because seasons have changed. Maybe your family dynamic has changed. Maybe your lifestyle has changed. Maybe you now are a parent. Maybe you now are an empty nester. Maybe you now are married. Maybe you now are single, whatever the case may be. And so your needs and your priorities change. Maybe you've been diagnosed with something, and so cooking at home has moved up on the list. Maybe you're trying to maintain a certain way of life, whatever the case may be. And that's why I avoid trying to be prescriptive and saying you should and you shouldn't, but more so like, here's some tools that have worked for me. Here's some questions that I've had to ask myself. Here's some things that I've had to consider when it comes to cooking at home consistently. And so do that time audit and then ask yourself, are my reasons for wanting to cook at home more important than some of these activities? And if it is, then you know what you need to do. If not, do not give yourself any judgment about it, but also then release the pressure of trying to force yourself to cook at home. Like, I want to give you a really, really strong example. And this was back when before I went on my 7-year break and of cooking, and I was cooking at home. And I remember thinking like, man, my job and, the hours that I have to work and all of that kind of stuff is, it kind of inhibits how I, feed myself and take care of myself. And I said to myself, I was like, either this is extreme. I am not telling you to do this. I'm telling you what I considered. I said, my health, my well-being, my this, my that, me taking care of myself, me wanting a life first, work second or third lifestyle, I asked myself, well, would I be open to getting a new job that would allow me to cook at home consistently? Or would I be willing to move to a place where my commute wasn't as intense to give me more time back in my day? Was I willing to put forth 80% at work versus 100% at work so that I could leave at a decent time to get home and cook for myself consistently? Was I willing to not be the star player every single time so that I could reallocate that energy and that time to cooking at home consistently? And the answer to all those questions for me was yes. but that was based on my value, right? And so when it comes to, the obstacle of time, it's really not an obstacle of time as much as it is a assessment of values and how those values are reflected in the allocation of that time, right? So I know I know it sounds a little philosophical, but it's really true that if you are in a place where you're like, no, career advancement is really, really important to me right now, and it's more important to me than cooking at home, release the judgment from yourself, but be honest with yourself, right? And don't make it right or wrong. It is what it is. However, if you're like, no, cooking for myself and for my family and all that comes with that, all the benefits that comes with that, but all of the effort that comes with that is actually more important to me in this season of life or whatever, then embrace that and also don't have any judgment about that. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, and do not have judgment for others whose values in this season of their life are completely different than your own. I know that people whose values are not cooking at home right now are not listening to this podcast. It's not engaging to them. It's not of interest to them. It's not even beneficial to them at this time. When cooking at home becomes a value for them or something they want to do, hopefully this podcast will cross their path, right? Maybe you'll share it with them. Maybe you'll share it to your Instagram stories and someone will be like, yes, this is exactly what I need. This is what I've been looking for. These are my people. So with that being said, let me know if time has presented itself as a huge obstacle for you for cooking at home consistently. And if so, what have you done about it? Or are you realizing like, yeah, I might be in the same boat as Evelyn was in, where it's like, what I'm really saying is these other things are more important and I don't want it to be that way. Again, no judgment here on my part for sure. And don't judge yourself either. Just let it be neutral. Let it be. It is what it is. And then you get to decide what you're going to do with that data. Let me know in the comments below and I will talk to you in next week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you're ready to start cooking at home consistently, make sure you join the Eat Out at Home Challenge. Visit chefevelyn.com/challenge for all of the details. If you're curious about what I'm cooking in between episodes, make sure to give me a follow on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for some delicious behind the scenes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify to leave us a review. Remember, eating out at home allows you to cook better, eat healthier, save money, and create community. And most importantly, cooking at home is the ultimate form of self-care. I'll see you in the next episode.